I watched Interview with a Vampire for the first time last night since I spawned on this earth, and I can't believe it took me so long. I literally fell in love with everything in this film, just like my mom said I would, and I definitely have to get the book, so let's give Anne Rice a round of applause. And a little fun fact, I have never watched Tom Cruise in a movie, and I've never had the desire to even see him act, but Lestat, I rest my case. You know, since it's October, I wanted to start a whole gothic movie marathon for myself because I haven't really been watching movies the way that I usually do. So this was a really great start for me, and to be honest with you, I was already gonna do a video on New Orleans, but this just really opened me up for it. And like I said before, handy dandy iPad, yeah, so not making eye contact with you. And so I began to ponder, as one does, despite and aside from the obvious supernatural and spiritual energy that permeates from New Orleans, what's the link between vampires and New Orleans? Or more specifically, what's the history of vampires in New Orleans? And why is there so much? We'll see. Vampire myths are ancient and widespread across Europe, with the earliest tellings emerging from Slavic and Romanian folklore. These same stories were brought to New Orleans by immigrants who settled in New Orleans, thus soon embedding into the city's deep folklore and culture. In Slavic cultures, vampires were seen as revenants of evil beings, suicides, or witches. However, they could also be malevolent spirits that possess corpses or being bitten by another vampire. Originally, they were depicted as, and I quote, bloated with blood and ruddy or with a dark complexion, far from the diverse multiverse of hunks that we now get playing vampires. Did I just use the word hunk? I've never used that word before. Nevertheless, vampires are way more diverse now. New Orleans was founded in 1718 by the French and later came under control by the Spanish before reverting back to French rule before becoming a state in the United States in 1803. The Spanish and French brought their own vampire myths, which intertwined with the local stories and African spiritual beliefs brought by the enslaved people that lived in New Orleans. It was the French folklore that introduced the revenant, a term that broadly encompasses the undead, including vampires, as well as the Spanish introducing tales of El Vampiro, a creature that lurked in the shadows, preying on the unsuspected, with the events of mysterious and unexplained deaths and illnesses only adding the fuel to the vampiric fire in New Orleans. In the 18th and 19th century, accounts of mysterious figures seen lurking in cemeteries and crypts only added to the dark aura, especially since one thing New Orleans is really known for are their beautiful cemeteries and their above-ground graves. So, you know, coffins, vampires in coffins, rising from the dead. You get it. Alleged, but historical nevertheless. Starting with the Carter brothers. One of the most famous vampire tales in NOLA involved John and Wayne Carter. According to the locals, these brothers were responsible for a series of disappearances in the French Quarter. Police got involved, and upon raiding the brothers' apartment, it's alleged that 4 bodies were tied up and drained of their blood in a makeshift prison that they had in their apartment. John and Wayne were soon then captured and executed, but rumors of them being non-human started to escalate when they found out that the bodies had vanished from the tombs. Additionally, witness claimed after the arrest, police found a makeshift prison in the apartment, and their approach to bloodletting hinted at something more dark, sinister, supernatural. Jacques Saint-Germain. This is a tale of a mysterious and wealthy Frenchman who arrived in New Orleans in the early 20th century. He was recognized for his peculiar habits, including never eating in public and hosting lavish, huge parties, yet he was only seen drinking wine. Rumors of his true nature soon began to spread when a woman escaped his house, alleging that he tried to drink her blood from her neck. He soon disappeared after that. To make matters worse, according to New Orleans legendary walkingtourist.com, Jacques Saint-Germain's enigmatic nature and aristocratic charm made him a prominent figure in New Orleans society. He also resembled the legendary Count de Saint-Germain, a European nobleman rumored to be an immortal alchemist and vampire, which only fueled the speculation. Furthermore, the woman that escaped told the police, the accounts of what happened, and upon the police investigating, they found that there was zero evidence of food in his apartment, and they only found bottles of wine, which seemed to be a mixture of wine and blood, so that didn't really help his case. Number 3. The Casket Girls. Now, this is another tale about young women that arrived in New Orleans from France in the early 18th century. They were sent to marry settlers and help populate the new colony, and when they arrived with coffin-shaped chests. You see where this is going. Ursuline Convent is said to be the center of this legend because they kept their coffins in the attic, which was later nailed shut by priests because, God forbid, women have a little secret life inside of a coffin. Local lore claimed they brought vampires with them, and the attic was then sealed to contain these, and I quote, dead things. Talk about invasion of privacy. Nevertheless, the attic still remains shut and remains a source of fear and fascination, and who knows, maybe one day they'll make their official appearance, these so-called vampires that are said to be brought with them in those coffins. Pop culture and media. The vampire legends of New Orleans have had a significant impact on film, literature, and pop culture, setting a huge runway for shows like The Vampire Diaries, the originals, and the reboot of the movie turned into a show, Interview with the Vampire, as well as movies like Twilight, Queen of the Damned, and Blade, with the most influential figure in vampire literature being Anne Rice, a native to New Orleans, might I add, whose portrayal of vampires were revolutionary, transforming them from monstrous creatures into complex, tragic beings. States, once again, New Orleans legendary walkingtourist.com. Well-known characters of Louis de Pointe de Lac and Lestat de Lioncourt also allows us to understand a glimpse of the immortal, misunderstood creatures. Now, some fun facts. Only 2. New Orleans has a vibrant vampire community, believe it or not, obviously. And the community hosts events and gatherings and also rituals. And the community includes people who actually consume small amounts of blood. From willing donors, obviously. Also from vampiric psychic vampires who believe that they can, absorb the energies of other people. Everything is consensual and safe according to the attendants, and a big part of the community is built off of respect for one another. Number 2, NOVA, standing for New Orleans Vampire Association, founded in 2005, helps provide support and resources for self-identified vampires as well as their allies, and they host charitable events such as feeding the homeless, which is always good, and they are also good support. They're good support for the communities. I tend to hyperfixate on things that I really like, so I'm just preparing myself for this topic to be in my mind, specifically the movie Interview with the Vampire, just to be in my mind all month. And I won't be surprised if I rewatch it 3 times, because I'm getting that book. Speaking of which, book of the month, since October just started, I'm reading The Red Dragon, and we'll see how that goes. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, this movie is definitely going to add to my gothic movie obsession. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do come again. And the next time somebody asks me what I think about vampires, I'm just going to say, avant-garde.